Okay, hi. This will be our next discussion, our first discussion for this subject, which is Public Speaking English 2. And before we begin our discussion, let's talk about this quote. Never mistake the power of influence by Jim Rohn. So this is very important. This is a very important quote, mainly because I want you to take note of the fact, and I highlighted it in all capital letters. It says power of influence. This will relate in our discussion further on. I want you to take note of that. Never mistake the power of influence. Now, how is this related to public speaking? We'll find out more. But before anything else, let's talk about why it's important to study public speaking. So, there are top three reasons why you should study public speaking, and this is one of it: personal benefits, professional benefits, and we have public benefits. Now let's talk about personal benefits. When you talk about personal benefits, this means it can help you gain skills that will get you through college successfully. But not only will you go through college successfully, but you can go through life successfully. So learning how to speak publicly or speaking in general will really benefit you as a person. So these are the top skills that you would learn. As I've said, you would be gaining skills when you are learning public speaking. So these are the skills that you would learn, and this is analyzing, researching, organizing, wording, and delivering. The second one is gaining skills in speaking effectively that will guarantee you employment, security, and success. So, if you want to really, someday, of course, in the future, you will become professionals. And if you want to grow as a professional, then of course, it's best to actually know how to communicate properly. And for you to do that, this course will help you. The next one is public benefits. So, this is your success on effective public speaking. It will ensure you a good role in society. Because, you don't just have a growth personally and don't have a growth professionally, but you should also have a growth as a citizen in a certain society. That is a holistic growth for you. Okay, now let's first go through personal benefits. The very first one, the very first reason why you should study public speaking. So I wrote here skills, knowledge, and confidence. So let's go and delve into that. I mentioned the skills already. So the first skill that I said was analyzing. Now, that is the very first step. Analyzing, this is understanding a given subject or topic. Now, what is good about this public speaking is that these skills are transferable skills. These skills can be transferred from not just this subject, but applied to different subjects as well. So again, the first skill that you will learn or develop in this course is analyzing when you understand a given topic. The next one, researching. You find sources that may support your response. So once you're done analyzing a topic or a subject, you go through research. You learn, you study more. So you find sources that may support your response to a certain topic or a certain subject. The next one is organizing. Of course, this is very important. Anywhere you go, you need to really be organized. So this skill will be taught to you as well or developed in this course. And by organizing, I don't really mean, the physical organizing, like literal organizing, but you actually do this by organizing the gathered facts from your sources. You know where to place it and you know how to use it. So that is the trick of organizing. And of course, once you're done with all of that, we have wording. Wording means phrasing words in written form and combining both personal and factual statements. So, of course, it's very important for you to know how to word, to phrase what you are about to say with the information that you have gathered and your own personal thoughts. So, there's supposed to be a combination of sorts. And of course, the last one, delivering. You should know how to deliver properly. You convey your thoughts, your ideas through oral communication. Another personal benefit for learning this course or studying this course is that you become more knowledgeable. In our book, in that book or our source, it says that we only remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we listen to, 30% of what we see, and 70% of what we speak about or talk about. So if you remember, I don't know if you're one of those people, but when you study, some people usually verbalize, right? Especially when you are memorizing, sometimes you verbalize. And I've seen that so many times in my speech classes where students actually, walk around on their own and then speak out loud to themselves. Or when you're just studying in your room, sometimes you enunciate these words so that you can remember better. So this is an advantage. You become more knowledgeable. Speaking is a test of your thinking abilities as you have to create ideas in your head, formulate them into sentences, and deliver that message with the use of your actions and your voice. Of course, in this course, you are not just taught how to speak publicly, but you are also taught how to present yourself in given situations. So, body language, facial expressions is very important in this course. Now let's go to the quote by Marcus Garvey, who is a publisher, journalist, and orator. He says, "With confidence, you have won before you have started." Now, I would like to ask, like, I think many of you have already struggled with confidence. And by confidence, I mean being comfortable being you. Because the moment that you are comfortable, the moment that you are confident, you become less conscious. You become less y- uh, very, very conscious with yourself, you become less awkward, and you present yourself properly. So, with that being said, you need to develop confidence. So, that's the goal. What is the goal when you develop confidence? You turn apprehension to confidence. By turning apprehension or fear, awkwardness, consciousness, you turn that to confidence. How do you do that? So you focus on developing your reading skills, your learning skills, and your doing skills. So the moment that you read, the moment that you study, you learn. You internalize what you have. And if you have noticed, the moment that you are comfortable and you feel knowledgeable or comfortable with what you are saying, you become more confident because you are sure, because you are certain with what you have. Now, the second one, we have professional benefits. I'm going to move up my screen a little bit up so it doesn't clash with the whole thing. There are two developments that can help you if you develop yourself professionally, and this is career and success. Now, wouldn't we all want that someday in our life? Wouldn't we want a stable career? And wouldn't we want to succeed in that said career? So, this is how you would be developing. Through this course, it can assist you on developing, going through this path of success. I'm moving my screen again. This is communication skills. So, the very first one is a study. In 2005, there was a report from the National Association of College and Employers that said that the most important characteristic to consider when hiring an employee is communication skills. You need to be able to know how to communicate yourself. You will learn, you will be taught through this course. And it would be better, I believe, if it was a face to face discussion. But since this is the pandemic, we will do as much as we can with developing that said skill. And again, statistically, in research, they say 1,000 HR managers say that communication is a top factor in helping graduate students get employment. Now, again, as I've said, this course, public speaking, helps you develop transferable skills. And of course, it guarantees you a higher success rate of getting hired, of getting that career that you want, of starting. Because, it's very difficult. I'm sure you have apprehensions. What happens to me when I graduate from my course? Will I get the job that I want? Will I get the position that I want? Will I even get a job? So these are the questions that you always have for yourself. And I know that you have that in the back of your mind. I've had that when I started college. Okay, this is the last leg of my educational trip. Of course, of graduate school not included. This is the last leg of the race. And you have those questions in your head. Now, again, when being able to develop this public speaking skills, this will guarantee you, not probably 100% because again it depends on the development of the person, but this will help get you or land you the job that you want. Now these are the vital skills. What are these vital skills? We have public speaking, which is again very important when you grow as employees someday in the future. So, public speaking skills, you are able to speak in front of an audience, big or small. Again, as I've said before, it is very important to do so. Maybe you suffer from anxiety when it comes to talking or speaking. When there are group work, you tend to shy away, especially if these are people with new faces. These are new faces. You tend to feel, you know, concerned or scared whether your opinion would be heard by others or whether it's okay if you share your opinion. You are afraid of being judged. Now, we shall, you know, get over that fear. Slowly in this course, I will teach you how to get over that fear and to be more comfortable in your own skin. But if you are a person, an extrovert, who's more comfortable with being with crowds and different people, then it's easier for you to develop. But I'm not saying that introverts or people who prefer to working alone or being alone cannot develop skills such as public speaking. Anybody can develop public speaking. I myself am not an extrovert in the least. I would prefer to already, just work alone and be by myself, but here I am. I'm an instructor. I face students in a classroom of, 50 to 60 people almost every day. And that's not just one class. So again, public speaking is for everyone. And of course, speaking is just the first part. The next one that you have to develop is your listening skills. You should be able to learn how to listen. You have the ability to listen and understand others. And the moment that you have these vital skills, especially as an employee or as a person who wants to land a job, the moment that you get that job and the moment that you develop these two vital skills, you become a, moving to the right over there, a successful professional. Okay, next one. We have the third one, which is public benefits. There's only one that I want to highlight here, and this is influence. Now you might be thinking, ma'am, I really don't see myself as an influencer. I don't see myself as wanting to influence other people. I prefer to just, get a desk job, earn money, enjoy my life, and, live the chill life. But regardless of that, regardless of viewpoints, you as a person, you are already in charge of your own influence to others. You don't know that, but every day you are influencing other people with your presence, with your thoughts, with what you share, especially the younger ones, if you are talking to younger people, younger generation. So there's a stereotype when it comes to public speakers. So when you think of public speakers, when we talk about public speakers, what do you think about? What's the first thing that comes in your head? You think about a politician, right? The people in Congress, the people at the top. Those are you know, influential individuals. Or a head or a boss, a CEO, a person who is a high ranking individual who has a lot of subordinates and who is already designed to speak publicly. And of course, celebrities. That's what comes in mind. These are people that actually have a lot of followers, but that's not just it. That's not it. There are other public speakers, and they come in the form of police officers who inform the citizens about safety. There are so many police officers who are in crime scenes, and you've seen that around, right? In the news where there are people crowding about because there's an accident in the road or there's a fire, and there are a lot of firemen, policemen who stop and tell you what to do and what not to do. And this is, again, a form of speaking to the public. You are talking to a group of people. Another one, community volunteer that gives instructions and information to people. Now, we have people who walk around, religious people to who go from house to house giving the message about God, or we have people who have, who have rights. For example, this example, there are rallyists. They talk about LGBTQ rights, or there are people who talk about women's rights, who go about and actually walk in the streets and discuss the importance of that, give information. And I think that's very important for you as a person as well. If you, especially if you are part of the student council, or if you are part of a certain group, if you have extracurricular activities, being able to develop that to communicate with a group of people and try to influence them and share your views is also very important. And lastly, we have people in the customer service industry. Now, we have flight attendants, and you might think, are they really public speakers? They are. Most of the time, these flight attendants are there to educate. Not only flight attendants, we have service crews, front desks employees in the hotels when they actually just stand behind the desk and they talk. Regardless of whatever position you have, regardless of whatever work you have, you tend to actually communicate with people. There will always be a moment where you do that. Even if you want to work in a corporate building, you will be presenting your projects, you will be presenting your work, your researches in front of a group of people. And that in itself is considered as public speaking. Even those people, if you've seen, I don't know if you've seen product samples, those people in malls where they talk about knives and they're cutting and they're talking in front of a lot of people, that is still considered as public speaking. So majority, a large percentage of work is considered as public speaking. So for you to do that, for you to be a better and a successful employee, you should be able to develop your communication skills. And of course, the definitions of communication. So for you to be able to develop communication, you should actually know what communication means. And I know that you do. I'm sure you've had courses in your under I'm sorry, in your undergraduate, in your high school, or even in other subjects that talk about communication. So let's just have an overview of this one. Okay, communication. Communication is from the Latin word communicare. Communicare means to make common to many, to share, impart, or divide. When you talk about making common to many, this means that you want a lot of people to know, to divide. Now, communication is sharing of meaning by sending and receiving symbolic cues. It is a two-way process. Now, let's look at this. Let's look at this draft, or let's look at this figure. This is the interpreter, the referent, and the symbol. This is one of those graphs of communication. There are a lot of different models of communication. This is one of the models of communication. And we have the interpreter, the referent, and the symbol. So what is this? The interpreter is the speaker or the listener. The referent is the idea, which each interpreter attaches to a symbol, and the symbol is what the message is, or the object to which the referent is attached to, or you attach meaning to. What is this? It's a bit confusing, right? So let me give you an example of that. Take, for example, when a host says, please give a round of applause to the audience, and the audience would immediately or automatically respond to clapping their hands. So the interpreter is the host, and the interpreter is also the audience. So the interpreter would say, please give a round of applause. The applause there is the symbol. Now, the referent there is what they want to happen through that symbol. So if there's an applause sign, if you've seen stand-up comedians or shows where there's a light that shows applause, and the audience would automatically clap. Why do you clap? Because you've seen the sign that says applause. Why do you know that that means clapping your hands? Because that is an equal understanding of both sender or listener. It is the same theory or it's the same application when it comes to stop signs. We don't have traffic lights here in Dumaguete, right? But if we did, what does red mean? Red would automatically be meaning stop. It means stop. Green means go, yellow means get ready. How do we know that? How do drivers know that? And how do people know that? Because it is a common referent to that. So there is an understanding. If there is a person who likes another person, they buy a bouquet of flowers and give that bouquet of flowers to the receiver. What does that mean? Appreciation, anything that's positive. You don't give a bouquet of flowers to a person that you hate, right? So again, the interpreter is the one that sends the message as well as the person that receives the message. And the symbol is the flower, and the referent is anything that's positive that's connected to that. That's it. It's the same thing with words. You don't need a, a hard object to really show communication. It can be words. For example, if somebody says, I hate you. So the interpreter there is both the person saying and the person receiving or listening. The phrase is, I hate you. The referent is something that's negative, a dislike, right? And the symbol there is the word hate because you're showing to this person that you hate this person. I love you. It's the same thing. The symbol there is the word love. So that is an example of the interpreter, referent, and the symbol. Now let's talk about the levels of communication. We have interpersonal, group, public, mass. Interpersonal communication is communication with yourself when you're thinking about things, when you have ideas, when you have thoughts, that that is called intrapersonal communication. I'm sure you've had that. I'm I'll give you an example. And this is what I really I think it's something that you can relate as an individual. I'm pretty sure we've been there. When you lose something, when you lose an object, and you walk around and go around this room and sometimes you think about yourself, Oy, where did I put that? Asan ako gibutang? And you start talking to yourself like that. And that's intrapersonal communication. And this might be a little bit negative, but there are some times, and I've seen so many students who do this a lot. Unsa, unsa good to? Or something like that. You hit yourself sometimes. Don't do it. Don't criticize yourself too much, but sometimes you really can't help yourself, and I've seen that. Now, next one, interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication, I'm just going to move a little bit, is yourself and another person. So that one. Yourself and another person. So it's you. You're probably talking to somebody else, your mother, your best friend, your partner, anybody. That is called interpersonal communication. It's not just internal communication with yourself, but it's communication between another person and you. Now, group communication is when you are communicating with three or more individuals. Three or more individuals interacting with each other. Now, public communication. What is the difference? Ma'am, isn't it supposed to be public communication as well if I'm interacting with a group? Nada, it's different. Public communication means face to face interaction with an audience. Again, as I've said before, if it weren't for the pandemic, you would be interacting with a class. What's the difference between group communication and public communication? Group communication is more, let's just say, internalized, no, it's really more condensed communication, wherein one person can communicate with another person and another person can communicate with another person in that group. So there is a back and forth of communication. Public communication is when a speaker is communicating with an audience. So he's not communicating with each and everyone, he's not interacting with each and everyone, but he is sharing information with that audience and basing it on the majority of the reaction for their feedback. And of course, last one is mass communication. When you use a print or electronic medium to reach a larger scale. Okay, so these are the five levels of communication. So it starts with small and it goes really big. Just imagine an inverted triangle: intrapersonal, interpersonal, group, public, and mass. Now, as I've said before, we have different models of the elements of communication. So this is an example. This is from the book that I am using for our discussion. And this is the communication elements model, which means a speaker encodes a message. The speaker encodes a message, sending it through a channel to a listener who decodes it, and the listener provides feedback, sending it through another channel to a speaker. And this interaction takes place in an environment with varying levels of internal and external noise. Okay? So it's very simple. And there are different models, but it's always, the elements are always there. The elements are always there. Never forget that. It's a bit complicated, so let me just go ahead and give you a simplified explanation of this one. Let me move here. Now we have the speaker. For example, if you are talking to someone, so the speaker is considered as the sender, encoder, and the source of the message. So if you have thoughts, if you have ideas that you want to share, you become the speaker, you become the sender. And of course, these ideas, you are starting to process it to make it into a message. So this process is called encoding. This is the process of selecting symbols to carry a message. So this is, what happens in your head, in your mind when you are formulating or making a message. Next one, you speak or send that message and it goes through a channel. So the message is the ideas communicated verbally and non-verbally. So you communicate the said message and it goes through a channel. So what is the channel? This is the medium. So a channel can be your mouth when you are talking to a person, personally when you are speaking with them, your cellular device if you are talking to a person digitally, your computer, anything. It could be a piece of paper or pen if you want to write a letter to a person. That is the channel. That is your medium of communication, how the message was sent. And on the other end is the listener or the receiver. Now, this one, we've used the word listener, is for verbal communication when you are talking to that person. But this could also be the receiver if you just want to communicate with them digitally when you are just writing a letter or sending a text message. It's the same thing, it's the same process. So, this is the receiver or the decoder of the message. So, the moment that they receive the message, they start to decode this message. What is decoding? This is the process of attaching meanings to symbols received. So you send a message, send a text message, and after that, the receiver, of course, will decode it in their head. And once they are done decoding, they respond back, thus making it as a feedback. Now, what is feedback? A feedback is a verbal or nonverbal response between communicators about the clarity or acceptability of messages. Why is this place nonverbal? So, for example, in public speaking, you as a speaker, you are talking to an audience. You do not talk to each and every one of this audience like you do in a group interaction. You don't interact with each and every one of them. So you gauge the response. For example, if you are making a report, I'm sure you've tried, making a report in front of your classmates before. And if you know that they're attentive, if you know that they're paying attention, you can see from their body language. Their eyes are looking at you. They're leaning forward because they are being very attentive with you. They're nodding because they understand what you're saying. Verbal cues and non-verbal cues are very important. Sometimes, and I'm pretty sure you do this when you are doing your report, and don't lie, you glance at your instructor. You do your report, and if you're nervous, you look at them. And the nonverbal cues will be there. If the instructor just looks at you and frowns and writes down, you know there's something wrong. If that instructor looks at you and nods and writes down, you know you did something right. Why? Because that is how you understand communication. Nonverbal communication is also very important. Now we have the environment. This is the physical setting and the occasion for communication. Usually, for digital communication, we don't have much issues when it comes to setting, except for, of course, something that's out of our control, which is connection, the internet connectivity. That's the reason why I usually do pre-recorded discussions so that you can actually revisit if you've missed something. But for example, in a physical setting, an environment really influences your communication. And side by side environment is noise. Be very careful with this. The noise distorts the message. It it's you're lucky if you don't have any noise and people can actually understand, but most of the time people might be confused with what you're saying, or the worst thing would be misunderstanding. Take for example, have you witnessed people arguing? Or have you been in an argument where a person is shouting or raising their voice? Once a person is shouting or raising their voice, that will be considered as noise. And once there is noise, there will be improper communication. You will not have smooth and proper communication. It usually happens a lot, right? When people are already shouting, it's difficult to give them reasons. It's difficult to talk to them and reach out to them. Another would probably be physical noise. And I'll talk to you about that more and how noise can really affect communication. There are three different types of noise. Again, noise is anything that distracts from effective communication. So these three types of noises is physical, physiological, and psychological. So let's start with the physical. The physical noise are the noise around. Try to imagine this. If you are walking right by a construction site and you're talking to somebody and it's really loud, would you be able to understand that person? If you are walking on the side of the road or just right by where a parade passes by, drum beats, music, or in a bar when you're talking to somebody, I'm pretty sure you've tried going there too. If not, then you've gone through music or performances where the speaker is really loud and it's really difficult to communicate with the person, even if that person is seated right beside you. You either close the gap, go near that person and whisper to the person's ear, or just make your voice louder to go against the noise. And again, it is strenuous on your end as a sender, as a communicator to do that. This is distractions originating in the communication environment. Now, what is physiological distractions? These are originating in the bodies of communicators. If the receiver is having a headache, that's a physiological issue. If you're talking to somebody who is not, if they are sick and it's very difficult to talk to them because they're dizzy, or if a person is nauseous, the person wants to vomit or on the verge of, vomiting, you don't, oh, you know what? I heard this. And something that's very important. And that person is already on the verge of vomiting. So, like, do you really think that they could talk to you seriously when they're feeling sick? So, again, physiological noise is also an issue. And of course, psychological. Psychological noise is anxiety. This originates from the thoughts of the communicators. Now, in cases such as emergencies, for example, if you've noticed, there are some people during accidents or emergencies where they don't really feel good and they're on the verge of passing out, they tend to really panic. For you don't talk to this person. If a person is already drowning in water, you don't tell them, "Okay, stay calm. Just, listen to what I'm saying." They are panicking. They are panicking. They cannot focus. So that is considered as noise. So you have to have your own approach in all of this. Okay? So as a public speaker, you must be able to know how to be a critical thinker. Now, let's talk about that. The public speaker as a critical thinker. How do you become a critical thinker? You have to know how to plan your content. So, content planning. Being a public speaker, you must need the skills to properly organize your presentation. And when you do this, this is writing a good speech with previews, time transitions, with facts, with summaries, all of that. And not only that, but you should also have good grammar and pronunciation. This is very important. I really want to focus on this one because the moment that you don't have good grammar and you don't have good pronunciation, it's going to be very difficult for other people to understand. Simple grammar. Although grammar is not the entire basis of that, but it can help. It can. Now, to do all of these, you must hone your thinking skills. How do you hone your critical thinking skills? What is critical thinking? It is a logical, reflective examination of information and ideas to determine what to believe or what to do. So you have to know how to do that. You have to know how to think logically and reflectively. And again, you will develop this skill during the course of the semester. These are other skills that you have to develop when you are growing your critical thinking skills. Developing your critical thinking skills. So these are the eight, right? Yeah, eight skills to develop your critical thinking skills. What's the first skill for critical thinking? Focusing. This helps you define problems, set goals, and select pieces of information. If you know how to focus, do you know how to focus? Because I know in this generation, there are so many people who like to multitask. There's no issue there. You can multitask. You can listen to music at the same time study because some people find that easier. Some people even work and have, a movie playing in the background, and that's fine. That's your way of focusing. Do not change your way. Just find what you actually need for you to focus and work with that. Next one, for critical thinking, you must know how to gather information. It's the same thing. It's more or less the same thing as the transferable skills that you have as an individual, gathering information. But that you don't just gather information, but you would know how to formulate questions and collect data. You don't just randomly write because that's the problem with each and every student around. Well, not entirely all, but most. When the teacher keeps on talking and discussing, you write everything that they say instead of taking note which ones will come out of the examination, which ones will be able to help me when I study, which ones are the important details. Those are proper questions that you should ask when you are collecting the data. Remembering. I'm not sure if it's a challenge for you, but you should be able to know how to develop remembering skills. You have to store information in your long-term memory and retrieve it. What is long-term memory? It's something that you have acquired from God knows how long, a couple of years back, and you still remember it now. Typical example for that is walking. It's a long-term memory, and you have acquired that from the longest time. It's again, the more that you actually use these skills, the more it will be easier and it will become like breathing. Trust me. Trust me. The more that you hone these skills. Next one, organizing. You need to be able to arrange information so that it can be understood and presented more effectively. Because there are some people who actually give information and it is an issue with other people where they talk about one information and then in the middle of the discussion they switch to a different topic. They switch to another topic and they go and talk about that. So when you start moving from one topic to another and not finishing what you're talking about, you lack organizing. You do. It's very important to do so for you to be able to get your point across. In studying law, especially, people don't like beating around the bush. Unless, of course, you are a creative writer, that's a different story. But most of the time, people don't like beating around the bush. So it's very important for you to know what your goal is and to stick to that when you are talking and thinking critically. Your ability to analyze, analyzing, clarify existing information by examining parts and relationships. What are, how are they connected, and all of that. So critical thinking. Generating, you use prior knowledge to infer and elaborate new information and ideas. So when you generate thoughts, generate theories, you base it on, oh, this experience, this is what happened in this situation. Should I apply it here? It's the same thing. And because of that, it allows you to really think critically. It, triggers the gears in your head. Integrating, you combine, summarize, and restructure information. This is very important. Take note of that. Combine, summarize, and restructure information. You do not get an entire paragraph from the internet, place it there, and then hope to God that your teacher won't find out and just hope that they would actually give you a grade. But that's not yours. Those thoughts are not yours. You got it from the internet. That's plagiarizing. So you have to know how to integrate it. Get those information, get that paragraph, read about that paragraph, get the information, and then use your own understanding and apply it there. That's how you think critically. Okay? And lastly, evaluating. Establish criteria and assess the quality of ideas. So you should know which one is important and which ones are not. And the last one, caring. Why? Why should we develop our care? Why should we care? According to Barbara Thayer Bacon, caring is a necessary characteristic of critical thinkers, for ideas and arguments do not have a life of their own. They are generated by people, and critical thinking is an activity performed by people. What a knower brings to the knowing, and how a knower relates to the knowing, is as important as the knowing itself. Sometimes we tend to forget that. Sometimes we tend to forget how to care. What do you mean by this? When you start to care, you become effective speakers and listeners. You develop receptiveness. You become receptive. Am I being conscious with the words that I'm saying? Am I being tactless? If I was a receiver, if I was at the receiving end of what I am saying right now, will I be able to understand? If I was at the receiving end, would I be able to feel insulted or offended? It is very important to achieve proper communication through caring. There's so many people who tend to forget that. Oh, this is what I think, this is what I believe. Give all this information without being open, without really thinking. Is this what the audience wants? Is this what the receiver wants? Should I do this? And of course, once you actually care about all of those things, the highest point of that, you would become both an effective listener and you would become both an effective speaker, thus making you a very effective communicator. All right? Okay, so that ends our discussion and let's go to our activity. After you watched this video, I want you to write down in the comments your personal experience with your struggle in communication, especially during the age of technology. When I talk about this, there are some people, especially it matters when it comes to age, right? There's always a generation gap, there's always a race gap, a culture gap, and that becomes an issue anywhere we go. For example, if I converse with my mom and I give her a very long and detailed explanation and she responds with a, don't you think it's a bit insulting? For us, for this generation, we find that the thumbs up is an insulting response, right? But for their generation, it's merely just, yeah, I got it, thank you, without any insult. So that's an example of an issue when it comes to communication. So I want you to write down your personal experience, whether it is through digital communication or through personal communication. Okay? So I'll be waiting for that. Your score will be given 10 points for your OR and 10 points for your attendance. Have a good day.